and welcome everybody to the Sunday edition of This Is Ibrox. We've got a very special show today. We've got GB joining on away from near Liverpool. How are you doing today, GB?
Very well, mate. Thanks. A lot better after the 3 points over the weekend. So yeah, now looking forward to another busy week ahead.
Yeah, and we've got Tommy, who's the sort of Darth Vader of this. I always say, and it's not just because of the heavy breathing we sometimes hear over the microphone. But how are you today, Tommy?
Well, you've spiked my guns there with the launch of This Is Ibrox After Dark, where you can put a premium rate number and get me breathing heavily down the phone. No, I enjoy these names that you all come up with me for. Believe you me, listeners, this is not what I get called in the group chat. Yeah. I sense it's a little bit different what I get called in there, but yes, it's always nice to be part of it.
Yeah, that's that exactly. Look, we'll crack on. Just a wee word from our sponsors at the start of the show. They great guys with Zenith Coins. Zenith Coins, brought to you. Sorry, I'll start that again.
Do you want to start that again, Kyle?
Yeah, I'll fully admit this. It's because it's on my phone and I cannot read stuff off my phone because the writing's so wee. So let me zoom.
I should say your lack of progress displeases me. If anybody's got a Star Wars reference in there, then we're done.
I'm not the host you're looking for. This is brought to you in association with our friends over at Zenith Coins. They're giving every Rangers fan the opportunity to own their own memorable coin collection. Zenith have created a set of 5 wonderfully crafted coins, each celebrating huge milestones in the club's 155-year history. There's a coin for the founding fathers, Ibrox Stadium, the European Cup Winners' Cup squad and Barcelona Bears in 1972, the 9-in-a-row team, and the 55th League title championship win under Steven Gerrard. Give that a wee look at www.zenithcoins.com now. It's always good for a birthday and the inevitable C word. I've been hearing it creeping into conversation a bit more.
It's coming about. JB, what do you think? Do you think he recovered well enough there after a shaky start from his?
He came back into there, but the fact he started talking about Christmas is a bit of a red card anyway. So he's
first touch, he's put it right out the park. One of those ones, booed from the stands.
Listen, that's it. From here on in, it's John Lundstrom's second half of the season, all right? So here we go. Look, today's podcast, we've got quite a few things to dig our teeth into. We're going to look at the goals in particular versus St Mirren. It was some fantastic goals. Really looking forward to talking about those. I think, and everybody's discussed when we left Ibrox yesterday with Sakala. Talk about the Ben Davies and the Golden partnership, which is progressing really nicely. Thoughts on Yilmaz. Seem to be a lot of traffic on Twitter, especially, discussing, potentially dropping Barisic, having Yilmaz come in. It's nice to get a wee look at him yesterday. The news of the departure of David Graham at Rangers in his director of communications role. We're going to discuss the gap in the Champions League. I think there was some really interesting comments from Jurgen Klopp and the Ajax manager Alfred Schreuder during the week as well. And sort of last thing we'll talk about is new deals for Robbie McCrory and Adam Devine. But we'll begin with, I like doing a wee on this day. And Tommy, I'll come to you on this one. Beginning on this day in 1993, Peter Hoekstra scored a double against Dundee United away from home. That was the 6-in-a-row season. Mark Haitley scored a third to make it 3-1 in that game. Just a wee comment basically on Peter Hoekstra, a guy that played a huge part in Rangers 9 in a row. I think he was there for 5 of the 6 seasons. I think he had 120 odd appearances. Somebody that's not spoken about an awful lot, but played a big part in it.
Yeah, I think he joined us FC Twente. And anybody in the comments is more than welcome to pull me up on my Dutch pronunciation there. It is not great. I can just about get my tongue round Amstel sometimes, right? I'm going to park up those jokes before anybody else jumps in with Dutch there. I think he joined us from the 1990. I think he was there for 4 or 5 years at Rangers. In terms of, I always liked watching Peter Hoekstra. I grew up that kind of era as well. When I say grew up, you can extend that 30% either side of that timeline. But I always found he was an exciting player. I think he might have been. I think he may be one of a few, a very, very small amount of Dutch players who'd been before him, if any. I'm not entirely sure about that. Somebody can double check that and put it in the comments. I'm not entirely sure there was any Dutch players before.
Yeah,
pulled on a Rangers jersey.
Yeah, I think that's a fair shout.
I can't think of any, and certainly, I think he went to Japan after that, Hiroshima, maybe.
Yes.
In terms of, like I said, exciting player. There's actually an interview within the This Is Ibrox archive. You'll find it on our website, on our YouTube, etc., where we sat down with him. I think it was last year. I think it was actually Scott who sat down with him and interviewed him. Really nice guy. He's making his way, obviously, in the kind of management. I think he's maybe in Azerbaijan or something like that at the moment. I might be slightly wrong there, but yeah, a really nice guy, a really, really good player, probably underrated in his time in terms of people should look him up. Really exciting player. I think he could have had a better goal ratio. I think he was maybe sub 30, sub 35 in terms of his time at Rangers. I'm grasping a bit for that number there. I might be off base.
25 goals.
Was it 25? Right, okay. I didn't think he was a massive scorer, but yeah, I mean, it's hard to add to the fact that I grew up and he was one of those exciting players. A really good buy, and I'd urge people to go and watch that interview.
Yeah, definitely. And JB, just something that I noticed in that sort of comment on Twitter that I used the idea for Peter Hoostra for was it said that that Rangers in that year, despite winning a league and League Cup double, only won 22 out of 44 games. I know that's a bit of a biased stat because it doesn't show you the draws, etc. But I suppose that would just never happen nowadays. I don't think anybody could win a league and League Cup double with only 22 wins. I suppose it shows you how far football's come between, and maybe ironically enough, something that we'll go on to talk about later in the podcast, the gulf between the sort of lower teams that are lower down in the table and Rangers. What's your thoughts on that kind of crazy stat?
Yeah, no, well, I knew over the years we hadn't been as dominant throughout seasons and stuff when you consider the talent and the gap that's always been there. We were actually talking about it, me, my dad and a couple of lads on the way back in the car this morning, and we were saying, could you imagine imagine something like that happening now? Can you imagine the social media outcry? It would absolutely be carnage. And you think of the players we'd have had in and around the time as well. Some genuine world-class players, which we haven't said for a while, would have been in and around the club at that time. So I think the current group of players are probably at Rangers at one of the worst times they could be there. I think the fans are so unforgiving, as we know. But now it's almost a case of it's 24/7 in terms of feedback through social media. So it's some of the numbers the players done. I mean, the 55 season, the Invincible squad, they should go down. Well, they will go down in years to come as legends, but at the moment, people probably have a little bit of a different eye on it. It's not until we look back we'll probably appreciate what a great job them guys done that season in terms of the importance of it, of the whole package of that season, and what we done in terms of not just the points won, the lack of shot we took in against us. That was a demonstration of how hard the players were working, and the defensive record that we had that year was unbelievable. So yeah, I do think we are in an age now where people will be critical first. I know even me coming out the ground yesterday was buzzing with the 4-0. But again, you straight away your minds go, what could we have done better? What's for next week? So yeah. It's good. It's good where we are though.
Yeah, no, that's it exactly. Look, I'm just having a wee look at the comments here. Everybody's dying to talk about this, the game yesterday. So let's crack on straight onto that. JB, I'll stick with you first. Let's just talk about the goals because I think there was some excellent football and excellent finishes on display yesterday. This one, the first goal for Rangers came after about 4 minutes. It was a really good start by Rangers. They had quite a couple of attacks. This one initially, Colak it was a half challenge on the outside of the box by the St Mirren player. The ball pops out. Barisic is about 25, 30 yards out, smashes it, and it comes off the post. And I think the most impressive aspect of this goal for me is that big Colak's absolutely bursting into the box, and he's where you want your striker to be. He's looking for scraps. The ball comes off the post, and he finishes it. It's a great finish. What was your thoughts on the first goal against St Mirren yesterday?
No, yeah, brilliant. Two reasons really for me. I mean, Barisic, if anyone watches Barisic in the warm-up, he's firing the ball into the top corner from 20, 30 yards in the warm-up, and you're thinking, oh my God, how have you never scored an outfield competitive goal for the club? Do you know what I mean? I think he scored 2 right-footed swingers Was the one against Ajax was disallowed, and he scored one against Blackpool in pre-season. And you think the lad's got so much ability and so much power in them boots.
Yeah.
For me, he should be hitting double figures a season. That might sound critical from a fullback, but he's got the ability, and I think that's where a lot of the Rangers fans get a lot of frustration with him. If you don't shoot, you don't score. Do you know what I mean? And it's not as if Scottish football's blessed with a number of fantastic goalkeepers. Do you know what I mean? So if you do take a chance and you've got players in the box, the likes of Colak, the likes of Mirren, the likes of Arfield, who likes to get in the box, if the keeper doesn't save it, there's going to be people there to try and gobble up the second chance. So it was pleasing on both fronts. It was good to see us starting the game with intensity. After the last 3 games domestically now, we've started the game where we've look, we're going to get at these early doors. And needless to say, we've had the reward. So long may it continue, to be honest.
Yeah, that's it. I think it was important we got the early goal yesterday, given that I think St Mirren are one of the few teams that I've seen at Ibrox so far this season that kind of looked like they knew what they were doing when they were attacking, if that makes sense. They looked organised and it was all very structured. So I think as soon as we scored that goal, their heads went down and our tails went up. So it's all good. So look, Tommy, well, the next sort of talking point from the game was the cross into the box from Tav. Declan Gallagher, I'm sitting at the opposite side of the ground, away up in the club deck from this, but I've since seen it back on the replay. It looks to me like it's pretty clear cut penalty. It just goes right through the back of Colak. I've seen Gallagher talking to the manager after the game, saying that he feels that he never touched him, but I don't want to say it was a stonewaller, but for me it was certainly a penalty.
Yeah, I broadly agree with that. I don't think it's in maybe the stonewall category, but it's more than enough to warrant a penalty. And if nothing else, it gives the conspiracy theorists something to focus on. Which is part and parcel of what Rangers are all about, Ibrox. So many thanks to our friends in the refereeing fraternity for stepping forward and giving us another penalty to Rangers. But I just want to kind of jump back there for a second, because the resurgence of Borna Barisic is something we should probably spend a little bit more talking about in terms of that Yilmaz dynamic, and there's maybe a rationale why he's not getting into the team, because this is not the Borna that we were seeing. He has stepped up. It goes to show the old adage of, get somebody to fight for your jersey. Actually, once you get somebody coming in, it doesn't become as easy. But I always just think with Barisic that in terms of that goals point, the ability's there. I'm completely with JB on that. I do sometimes think that he doesn't fully believe that he's going to ping one, and his job is to get the ball in the box. And you think, I cut inside every now and again, hit it. It's not as if he's not capable of it, but he seems to be in that mindset of, my job is to get the ball in the box. I'm not slating him for that. His delivery is arguably the best at the club when he's on game. But yeah, I just wanted to take a moment to point out that he has absolutely put himself back in that jersey. And, I think maybe that surprised the coaching staff as well, who had spent a pretty decent amount of money on Yilmaz. And it's maybe just not as easy or as binary a choice anymore of saying, well, we'll drop him in and Borna can come out. So long may that continue.
I'll stick with you on that point, Tommy, seeing as we're talking about it. I was planning on talking about it later, but as soon as you brought it up, let's talk about it.
Apologies, Kyle. Apologies.
No, it's all good. It's a podcast. We're talking about stuff. Things change. It happens. But somebody said there that he's surprised the coaching staff. Should the coaching staff have been surprised given how Barisic has reacted in the past? And I talk about that infamous closed door friendly game where Gerrard chucked, was it Lafferty under the bus? I can't remember. There was another player, I can't remember who it was, but I seem to remember it was only Barisic that actually chapped the manager's door and said, look, I can be better here, which I think stood him in a long way in terms of his character, because I don't think anybody expected Barisic to go and say to Gerrard, look, I deserve my place here. But maybe going off on a wee tangent there, but there was a lot of shouts for Yilmaz yesterday. Would you put Yilmaz in the team given his 15-minute cameo? He's a lot more direct, didn't seem to cross the ball as much as Barisic, but surely as Rangers supporters, it's not unreasonable for us to expect a guy that we're paying £5 million for to be starting games.
Yeah, well, firstly, my job tonight is to try and throw your agenda as far out the window as I possibly can, right? So,
Well
having
done.
said what the agenda is, I'm determined to try and score a line through. But and JB's going to help me on that. It has to be said, right? So, stay tuned. But no, listen, there's a long answer to that, and I'm trying not to give you the massively long answer here. But in terms of Yilmaz, yes, it's a large spend. I think the coaching staff, Ross Wilson, etc., are on record as saying he's been bought as a longer term project. He is somebody who's been looked at like a Bassey, if you like. I mean, I know the figures aren't comparable because the spend, $500,000 or whatever it was, $250,000 cross-border training fee versus 5 million. But they see Yilmaz being able to generate the same amount of income when he eventually goes. I don't think they'd naturally be surprised about Borna. He's got that mentality, and lots of people have thought maybe he's weak actually, but he keeps getting back to the well. That says something about his character.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just looking for that final reaction, which is some players, no matter what their character, might say, well, do you know what? I've been at Rangers for X amount of years. I know I can get a move. They've brought in this young guy for big money.
Mm.
Have I done enough? I've won the title. I've got to a European final, all that type of good stuff. But he's not. What he's done is he's worked really hard. He's still not the Borna that was at peak level, right? I'm not saying he is, but he's climbing the mountains slowly but surely. And you think that's all to his credit, because what he's saying there is, I'll knuckle down. And you know what, Ridvan, you come and take my jersey off me. I'm going to make the management team try and find game minutes for you. I'm not going to hand you game minutes. And do you know what? That's what you want right across the squad. You look at, to extend it a little bit, and I'm not going to drain this because we will talk about him later. But Colak v Morelos. Now, when Morelos was out, that was right, okay, it's just when he's back fit and then Colak will come out. Doesn't matter how he's performing.
Yeah.
That's maybe not the conversation anymore. We'll see that later. But yeah, I don't think they'll be naturally caught out with it. What they should be is absolutely bloody pleased in the background. Oh, look, there's a player who's not willing to let go of his Rangers jersey. Pretty sure we want a squad full of guys like that.
Yeah, I think you raised an interesting point there. I think you look at players like Kent in particular. Nobody has really been brought in to replace him or to challenge him, and I'm glad Borna's responded in the way he has, because I think there's an argument that he's been our most consistent player this whole season in terms of defence and at times attack. Look, JB, I'll try and steer it back to the game. We'll talk about what for me was my favourite goal of the whole game. It was Colak's second goal around the 73-minute mark. Sakala picks the ball up from the halfway line. Something that we've not really seen an awful lot of on the right-hand side. He's direct. He goes into the middle. He just seems to really drift past with ease a couple of St Mirren players. He finds an excellent weighted ball that I was quietly surprised, given that the only time I seen him this year was in the Queen of the South game, and he had a couple of absolute horror passes for that. It was a beautiful ball right onto Colak, through the defender's legs, and one of my favourite finishes that I love to see with the outside of the boot curling just to beat the keeper. What was your thoughts on that goal?
Yeah, no, the same. I mean, one thing about Sakala, I think everybody, you can't help but like him. You know what I mean? I think he's the energy that he brings and the big stupid smile that he's got. You just can't help but like him. For me, I would like to see him getting more minutes. I think I've been quite vocal on this. The numbers don't lie with him. Do you know what I mean? He might fall under the same category as maybe one or two others within the squad. And a lot what we were told about Colak, in the fact that you play him against the teams with less ability, and he'll absolutely deliver for you. I think what we're seeing with Sakala, if there's an opportunity for him to run into space, he'll take it. We've got to accept his final ball's not always going to be there. But if his final ball was there, he wouldn't be at Rangers. Do you know what I mean? That's a fact, because players of that pace, there's a lot of players playing in the English Premier League who are lightning quick, but they can also deliver that little bit of magic. So we can't maybe expect that. But as I've said a few times, his numbers last year, he had the same amount of goal contributions as Ryan Kent. And this isn't a Ryan Kent beating stick, but you can't tell me, if you look at Ryan Kent and Sakala when they're both on the pitch at the same time, who's absolutely busting a gut and who wants to genuinely be there every single minute. Sakala chases lost causes. He's he's relatively clinical in front of goal. I'd love to see his goals per chance ratio. And overall, I just think he needs more minutes. I don't think he's ever, since he's been at the club, I don't think he's ever had a great run. I remember his hat-trick against, was it Motherwell last season?
Yeah.
But then I don't think we've seen him again for a wee while then, and it was almost like, right, we're going to give this kid a chance to get going, because he came off the back of 15, 16 goals over in Belgium the season before. So he knows where the back of the net is, and I've been quite vocal in terms of my view of we don't get enough players on that pitch who can score goals. Without, again, even though they're off form at the moment, they'll finish the season with 7 or 8 players that will finish on 10 goals or more for the season, and we'll genuinely finish on probably about 3 or 4. So we need to get players into that team that will score goals. There's more bad teams than good teams in Scotland, so let's cater for that. So let's make sure we've got players that will cause problems. And again, without going too far off topic, in fact, I'll save that because I don't want to completely ruin your agenda despite Tommy's efforts. But yeah, I just love the guy in terms of Sakala. Don't think I would throw him in on Wednesday. So without doing too much of a preview for that, I don't think he's probably hasn't got the intelligence for that type of game. He was thrown up he was at Braga away last season, and he just looked genuinely lost. So that just all falls and complements that. He's going to be a fantastic player domestically, and he will get the numbers. He'll get goals. He'll get assists. He'll win free kicks, and yeah, just see how he goes.
Yeah, no, that's it exactly. As you've used a fair few points about Sakala there, who I think's he's interesting. That's interesting. I think the word in the street, especially when we were leaving, is I think a lot of people were saying they would start him on Wednesday, but we'll come to that later. Look, the last goal to talk about, Tommy, was another fantastic goal around 91 minutes. At this point, at the ball from Leon King, and I remember Craig turned around next to me and he went, "That was a really risky pass." The ball finds Tav finds Morelos, who just sort of holds it up. It's good forward play. He waits, then he just releases it again. It's another really good deft touch, just right into the path for Sakala. Doesn't even have to break stride, and again he just curls it round the outstretched palms of the goalkeeper. This was another really good goal in this game, Tommy.
It was, yeah. They were all really, really good goals, really well put together. Good football. Nice to be talking about, back-to-back 4-0 wins in the Premiership.
Yeah.
Coming off the back of the Hearts game as well. And, I might as well ring the cliche bell. Sakala deserved it for his work rate and all that in the game. Bang, ding, 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 right? But it was a lovely ball, Morelos through. You're absolutely right in I think the fact that Sakala takes it pretty early, I think occasionally, and I agree he's relatively clinical, but he could sometimes be accused of being a little bit wanting to take the extra touch and set himself. He actually that's a confidence thing. We all know that, particularly in front of goal. He's just hit it. Lovely, lovely finish. I think what pleased me most of all is the fact that Rangers kept playing right to the very, very end and kept trying to get that next goal. That's always good to see. You think, right, don't let up. It's 3-0 at Ibrox. Everybody's emptying. They could have just switched off, but you've got guys, particularly Sakala, trying to make those runs, in behind, get on the end of that ball. That's exactly what's needed. And sometimes when you're not playing well, you go to the hard working ratio and all that type of good stuff. In terms of Sakala himself, this particular jurist is still out when it comes to Fashion Sakala. One decent game against St Mirren is not going to win me over in terms of the naivety that he shows in terms of his positioning sometimes. And I fully appreciate the clinical stats that Jamie's given as well. His ratio is pretty good, but show me consistency, then I'll give you a smile back, saying that he gives type of scenario. Just because a guy smiles a lot and has a decent wee song and stuff like that doesn't naturally win me over. Keep sticking the ball at the back of the net, keep performing, keep raising your game. Do what Matondo's not been able to do and get consistency. Put numbers on the board like Kent hasn't been able to do, and then we can have a better talk, and I'll join the Fashion Sakala bandwagon. Right now, I'm wishing him all the best.
So that's interesting. You say that's I think the stat that I saw earlier on about Fashion Sakala is I think it's 108 minutes it contributes to a Rangers goal, be that an assist or a goal itself. I find those figures really hard to argue with. I think it's the third highest within the club. And you look at him compared to Scott Wright, you look at him compared to Matondo at the moment. I just personally don't see a better option there.
I agree with you. So then, don't get me wrong, right? That's me not having a go at Fashion Sakala. He's doing what he's been asked to do off the bench and stuff like that. What I'm saying is, if you want to transfer yourself from a guy who comes off the bench and gets good numbers to a guy who starts and gets good numbers, then that's a slightly different thing. He deserves a chance. I'm absolutely not saying anything against that. He looks like he's, up in his game. If he can come in and grab the jersey and say, right, you signed Matondo or whatever, but he's out, I'm pushing him out the way, I'm not letting anybody take this jersey off me. I'm a happy camper. I want guys on the pitch and Rangers jerseys performing. But until I see a run of consistency when he's starting and finishing games and getting important goals, then the jury still has to be out. I would also say as well, we're casting about and we're saying, he's performing really well. This is not anti-Fashion Sakala, by the way, before people have a go at me to any great degree. But you look at the depth that we're currently experiencing. Kent's not performing and hasn't performed for a long time. Morelos is coming back from injury. Colak is performing above expectations for the majority of the support. I'm sure the management team and the analysis team would say bang on expectations, right? We think it was a bargain. Then you've got Matondo, you've got Scott Wright. The pool of performance in those wide areas is not exactly huge. So when you're comparing Fashion Sakala against that, you have to be aware that the bar's not particularly high at the moment.
Yeah.
But that means he's got a chance to stake his claim and be a starter. And he's got every right to demand a chance. So, yeah, good on him. I hope he comes in. I hope he wins that jersey. I hope he puts in the consistency that I'm talking about and makes me a Fashion Sakala bandwagon, fully paid up, my jails platinum member or whatever it is, right? Because that's what I want. But right now, I'm not going to sing his praises overly because he's one of a best of a bad lot in the wide areas at the moment.
Yeah, I think that's a fair comment. And JB, I think you've given us a wee insight in terms of where you sit and with this. But given that Sakala said in the press conference that he's happy to play wide right, given that his work rate, given how he performed against Liverpool last weekend as well in his wee brief appearance, where do you sit in it all? Is it worth Rangers taking a risk knowing that you're going to get a duff pass every now and again, an absolute duff shot for what he brings overall to the team?
Yeah, I think to Tommy's point, I don't think he'll ever get into that position where he's going to be a regular starter. I don't think he's got the tactical intelligence to be in there every week. And not against him because players say certain players are good at certain things. He's raw. How old is he now? Is he 24, 25? If you roar at 24, 25, it's not going to change. He's not all of a sudden going to start standing on the ball and start picking out delightful passes. He's going to give you energy. He's going to give you moments of frustration. He's going to give you a lot of determination and a lot of fight. I think one of the things, let's compare it to Scott Arfield, okay? If him and Scott Arfield play the same amount of minutes, from now to the end of the season, I'm going Sakala's hitting 15. Scott Arfield's maybe hitting 8. Okay, get to the last game of the season because I think this league's going to be nip and tuck all the way. It comes to goal difference. I know I want them extra 7 or 8 goals in the team, and that's what we need. We won't beat teams 5, 6, 7, 8, 9s with the way that we play because with all due respect, our midfield three yesterday between Lundstrom, Arfield, and Jack, very workmanlike. Which is great, and every one of them gives 110%. How many goals are they going to finish up come the end of the season? Do you know what I mean? Maybe will one of them finish on more than 5? Maybe Arfield. So therefore, we haven't got goal scorers in the team. Our best performance this season was when we had a midfield three. I think it was Lundstrom, Tillman, and Tom Lawrence as your midfield three. You compare that to the guys yesterday, and it's just very workmanlike. We're better than workmanlike. Do you know what I mean? We need players with ability, and I think that was one of the frustrations in the window, in the fact that we never brought in that player, that guy who could give us that bit of magic. I was talking with my dad in the car on the way up there on Saturday, and I was saying I was watching the Galatasaray highlights back from last season. Was it last season, season before? And Hadji touched the ball twice throughout the game, and the 2 touches that he made were just the tick in both goals, just the drop of a shoulder, completely turned the game. With all due respect, Arfield, Jack, takes them 3 touches to turn, and it's just because it's not the style. So again, back to the original point of Sakala, goals win games. I wouldn't have him in there in your old firms. I wouldn't have him in there in your games where it's you need to be tactically astute because you're not going to see a lot of the ball. However, in games where, especially at home, where we're going to dominate, having players like that who will score goals, the numbers don't lie, then I'm all for it. But however, with an air of caution, that I don't think we won't build a team around him, but get as many players in that team who'll score 10 plus goals, and we won't go far wrong come the end of the season.
Yeah, look at that. Sakala certainly got a lot of debate going in the comments on the YouTube. I'll tell you that there's quite a few coming in terms of what side they are. Rangers Top 10 says that Sakala is chaos. You know, and it's that word, and it's, I don't even think he knows what he's doing at times. So how can defenders know what he's doing? You know, so yeah, it'll be interesting to see the lineup for Wednesday. But look, the next point from the game, which I myself was particularly pleased about, and I'll come to you on this one, Tommy, was the centre half partnership that Ben Davies and Connor Goldson seem to be developing. You know, I don't think it's a coincidence that Rangers have, excluding the Liverpool game midweek, the Rangers have got 2 4-0 wins. I think it's been built on the defence. I think we've just looked a lot more assured. What's your initial impressions been of Ben Davies and Goldson this season so far?
But yeah, they perform really well. I don't know what black magic or a cult that the Rangers medical staff were working on Ben Davies whilst he was out of the team before he started, but he looks absolutely fantastic in my opinion. His positioning's spot on. He looks like a player who's come from the Premiership. I don't mean that disparagingly to Scotland or anything like that. I just mean sometimes you see the level of competitor they've been up against, and so they play in a certain way. Goldson has some of that as well, although he's prone to some of those chaotic moments that you were referencing a moment as well. But yeah, I like Davies in there. He looks like, I was really worried in terms of that, because I always thought that our best central defender at the club was Philip Helander. To a certain extent, I still believe that, but it's hard to defend, you know, completely when you've got no legs.
Yeah.
You know, the movements are a fairly low level, so I don't think we'll ever see Philip again, by and large, in a Rangers jersey, right? Apart from maybe some training stills that we see every now and again, and then he's away for a while. But Davies looks like he is a real defender, but he can also break the lines and come out with the ball. His positioning, as I said, is fantastic. He seems to be working really well with Goldson, and I think it's really important as well that that's another experienced leader in there next to Goldson, because Goldson's been doing all the heavy lifting. Connor Goldson gets a hard time sometimes, absolutely warranted on occasion, it has to be said, right? He is prone to switching off. I think it's maybe potentially bleeds his hype sometimes, right? I'm not sure, but by and large, a lot of his Rangers career, he's had a relatively inexperienced centre back next to him.
Yeah,
Katic, Spassi, all that type of stuff, right? Helander being the exception. Now he's got Davies. It looks like, all right, I can go, or I can split. We can have a little bit of a wider. We can drop back. We can communicate, because I know that you're giving me confidence that you can set yourself up as well. He's not having to talk the entire back four through, because you look across it and it's now a quite experienced back four. You know, well, it's a very experienced. You've got Barisic, you've got Davies, you've got Goldson, and you've got Tav. That's a very experienced back four, and then you stick in a really experienced goalkeeper. There's a good amount of confidence there. So that bodes well, I think, I'll put Europe aside, but for the Premiership campaign, in terms of, I would expect us to return to being more robust defensively than we are maybe at the start of the season. So that's a longer answer in terms of, there's a couple of extra things that I've added in there, but Davies looks like he is a real buy, and he will perform particularly well, and I'll happily take him over a Suter or anything like that any day of the week.
Yeah, totally agree with what you said there, Tommy, in terms of just his composure, and he just looks really reassured next to Connor Goldson. It is like they have been the highest compliment I can pay that partnership is they look like they've been playing together for years. Look, JB, an interesting point that I was when I noticed watching the highlights, the extended highlights yesterday, was in terms of that centre back partnership, and during the game yesterday, it was quite evident that. I don't know if it's something new that we've been trying, but Rangers have talked about that sort of horseshoe, and it takes a long time from the ball to go to the left to the right. Yesterday, we seem to be missing that pass out between the two central defenders. I noticed Davies, sorry, had the confidence to just sort of put it right over Goldson's head. And another thing as well is that's two players at the central defence that we've got that can just launch pretty accurate 60, 70-yard balls and just put us straight in the attack. From how impressed have you been from I know it's crazy to talk about it, but from an attacking side in terms of just getting us up the pitch a wee bit quicker?
Yeah, I think Tommy touched on it there. I think it's come down to confidence, doesn't it? You wonder whether, especially with Goldson, in terms of the players, the amount of centre-half partners he's had this season. He had 4 or 5 different partners already so far this season. So maybe as a professional footballer at that level, and given the fact that some Rangers fans are looking for him to make mistakes, I think that's pretty certain. I tend to be quite vocal where I sit in the governing rear. If Connor Goldson makes a bad pass, the world has ended. However, if it's certain other players who are maybe playing centre half, unlucky, I could see what he was thinking. Do you know what I mean? And he's probably just a victim of his own success because and similar to Ryan Kent, because we know the levels they can get to. But in terms of the moving the ball quicker, yeah, no doubt. I think as well. So whereas the likes of if King comes in, Sands comes in, they're probably wanting that touch just to kind of ease them in because they're not playing regularly. If you haven't played for a while, you want more touches of the ball. So you wonder whether they're asking. Whereas I spotted yesterday, Davis and Goldson were constantly pointing and saying, right, there we go, stepping back to allow that ball to go wide. So no, I think it can only benefit us. I think one of the frustrations we've had as a fan base is we don't get the ball quick enough, forward quick enough. I think the last goal that we scored was just so refreshing. That was like Michael Beale ball, wasn't it? Where 2 or 3 passes and we were in the opposition box. So I think if we can get things settled down again, get back to not conceding goals and dominating games from early doors, getting that 2-0 before half time, I think it's a recipe for success. I think we can all agree we haven't started the season well, despite the points that are on the board. I don't think there's been many games as Rangers fans we've sat and enjoyed this season. However, I did enjoy that on Saturday. So I think if we can rack a few more of them up before Christmas, or certainly before the World Cup, I think we'll be in a good shape. And then hopefully the medical table at Murray Park gets a wee bit smaller as we start to bring the likes of Lowry back in. We start to see Roof. I agree with Tommy. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll see Hollander again. Suter will probably be well into next year now before we see him as well. So, yeah, no, I'm relatively content on where we are. But great to see the centre halves dominating and looking good. As Tommy said, I think they give us great balance. A right and a left foot centre half, it just does make a difference. There was a few times last year, certainly in Europe, when Balogun was playing on the left hand side of the centre halves. People forget with Balogun, we conceded a hell of a lot of goals when that guy was playing. Loves Rangers, which is great, but the amount of goals we conceded was scary. I think he was in the team and we conceded 4 sets of 3. So let's not pretend that he was Maldini like, but yeah, I think just get the lads' time together. I think we've seen with Hollander and Goldson, the more they played together, the better we looked, the more comfortable we looked. So no, I'm really pleased, and I say hopefully Davis can get that run.
Yeah, no, that's it exactly. It's been really nice just to watch their centre half partnership. It's nothing official, but looking at it aesthetically, it just looks right, if you know what I mean. Just it's the balance is much better, and I think it's nice to see McGregor and behind the two of them as well. Look, the next point we'll come to is sort of off the field matters.
I think we need to go back to the fact you've just called our centre back pairing aesthetically pleasing. I I'm not entirely sure I'm willing to walk past that in any way, shape, or form. But listen, it's not the word I expected. That's why I smiled. I did. Of all the words that I thought you were going to use, I didn't expect this like aesthetically. Well, fair play. Fair play.
Listen, there's been many comments about Tony Colak up front, so I'm more than entitled to call the centre back pair aesthetically pleasing. All right.
They call it a beautiful game for a reason. So I'm glad you've highlighted it.
No, that's it exactly. But look, the next bit of sort of off-field news to come on to is the announcement earlier in the week. I think we actually broke it on the Friday bulletin when we were live with Adam's great show on the Friday. Was that board member and head of communications David Graham had left his role at the club due to family reasons. First and foremost, we've got to say big respect to anybody that has to, puts their family first, and wish them all the best in that regards. I think it's safe to say he was a controversial figure at times, Tommy, but this has got to be an opportunity for Rangers to perhaps start afresh in terms of this. We've heard lots of noise from especially guys like John Bennett, talking about communication. This is a chance for the club to, as I said, maybe start from a clean slate. What would you like to see from? Are Rangers going to bring in a new director of comms? Are they going to maybe change the role? What's your thoughts on it?
First of all, I echo your words about family first. That's, you wouldn't want anybody to have to go through that, and I hope whatever the situation is cleared up in the best positive way possible for David and his family. I think it's fair to say that David had a polarising effect on some of the support. There was some big steps, bold steps, innovative steps, missteps as well. So much so that JB cut right out there. That's what he thinks of the communication structure. I think I won't labour the point about David. He's no longer the story. He's no longer an employee of Rangers Football Club, so it doesn't particularly. He no longer matters. Yeah. In terms of the go forward position, I think you referenced John Bennett's interview, and you can think whatever you want about the quality of that interview. Actually, from the other week, I certainly hold my own views in that it wasn't particularly great, but he made. There wasn't even a veiled comment about communications. It was fairly pointed in terms of, now, what do Rangers do? It's a bit of a thankless task being director of communications at Rangers. You never switch off 24/7. I don't think you can do wrong for doing right. There's multiple areas where we still have to continue to push ourselves forward with the governing body, for example, and some of our erstwhile media partners, the interaction of fan media, for example. I think Rangers probably need to settle on, how do they square off the current environment they have with fan media and the engagement levels that we get with what's been a growing amount of in-house work that they're doing. So do they want everything to be in-house and on their own channels? Do they want to drip feed stuff into fan media? Do they want to allow access? It's all been a bit bitty, for want of a better way of putting it. Not great language from me, but it's been hard to detangle exactly what the strategy was behind that sometimes. And again, not to continue referencing him, but David wouldn't have been the sole builder of that. He was a member of a board, and so the board would have been interacting with that and making decisions. It's not just his decision to do that. I think they need to be really clear about what they want now, and then start to utilise their channels slightly more effectively. It'll be interesting to see if they appoint somebody on a singular basis, or whether they bring in an outside consultancy, not of a previous level 5 or whatever it was, but an actual genuine consultancy to start to grow the brand. The final point to that will be, Rangers have made great noise about growing the commercialisation aspects of our wider global reach. So I think last AGM they spoke about the pivot to Asia, the subcontinent in terms of India, etc. We had the Star deal where we got the rights to the Premiership, that type of thing, making sure that we still capitalise on our brothers and sisters in terms of fellow supporters in ORSA and NASA and all that type of good stuff. So you need somebody who's got that global reach as opposed to maybe just an insular domestic one. And that's not me having a veiled comment about David there or anything. I think there just needs to be a really clear statement from the club about what they think is the best way to engage the fans, because I think it's fair to say that fans have felt on the outside of being behind commercial deals. So how do you right that particular ship whilst still keeping the money coming in?
Yeah, Yeah, it's a very difficult job, I think, regardless of who gets it. So good luck to them in that role. But look, JB, I think that the next point in terms of off-field stuff, I just thought this was quite interesting in terms of Jurgen Klopp's some of the stuff he had to say post-match in the Liverpool game. I think I read that he said, you know, Rangers had an exceptional year in Europe last year, then qualified for the Champions League. That's all good, but they're learning at this level. That is normal, and it cannot all come in 1 year. And then, interestingly, we also had the Alfred Schroeder, the Ajax manager, coming out. I think we actually posted it on our Twitter feed in terms of what he said after their quite humbling 6-1 defeat away to Napoli. Was that if you look at Napoli and Liverpool, well, you will see that they are a tier too big for even us. So, I mean, what's your thoughts on those comments from Klopp? Do you see them as condescending? You know, why is Klopp sort of commenting on Rangers, sorry, or do you see that as this is a guy that knows his stuff in the Champions League? He's been round the blocks a few times with a couple of different clubs. He's won it. As supporters should maybe be taking notice of what he's saying, or what's your thoughts on those comments?
Yeah, I think it'd be hard to disagree with some of the high-level comments there that Klopp's made. Obviously, he knows his stuff. Obviously, when things aren't going his way, he likes to. I haven't heard the post-match interviews from today, but I'm sure somebody was out to get them or something. But I don't think you can argue. I mean, one of the things, I don't think we're helping ourselves with that overall point in terms of the way that we've been playing. I don't think there's any Rangers fan there that thinks we've certainly maybe take out the first 60 minutes. We haven't performed. We haven't done what we were good at. I'd rather we'd have played the way that we played throughout the Europa League over the last few years. And if that wasn't good enough, that would be cut down to a quality. There's just not enough quality there. And then you can kind of hold your hands up and go, well, there you go. However, I don't think we've been getting beaten by quality in these games, albeit it's been there and there's been some good finishes. But we've been outran, we've been outfought, we've been tactically all over the place. I still maintain how the hell we thought we were going to play a two-man midfield at Anfield, one of them being a 37-year-old against certainly two of their three world-class footballers. It was just never going to happen. You can't afford to go to Anfield. Man City won't take two luxury players to Anfield. Do you know what I mean? And we're expecting Tillman and Kent to play wide and then come in when we've got the ball. When they had the ball, but by the time they've got the ball, they're 3 or 4 passes up. And so Tillman, with his lethargic approach, definitely isn't the man. I mean, other than PSV away, where at times, even there, we were all over the place, albeit we got the result. That two-man midfield against 3 just does not work. All of our success last year was because the likes of Glenn Kamara, the likes of Jack when he was in there, even Arfield when he was in there, Lundstrom when he was in there. It was a working man midfield. It was 3 absolute grafters. And then we relied on pace from the wings, whether that be through Barisic or whether it be through Tavernier from the fullbacks. And then you had Ryan Kent on a European night. We know there's not many better. So I just don't think we've helped ourselves. So back to the point around Klopp. Yeah, he's right in the fact that it probably will take us time to get used to the environment that we're in. But we've got to help ourselves first. The Napoli game was more like last season in the fact that we set up and everybody could go, I can see what we're doing here. Lundstrom was stepping into the midfield from the back as opposed to it being the other way where we just played a complete flat back 5. So let's not forget, John Lundstrom's not a centre half. Do you know what I mean? And we were asking him to play centre half at times throughout the season. He's a good player to drop in for 5 minutes here and there in between transitions, but not to start a game in that position. So I think there's a number of learnings that we've just got to take from this season, certainly from a step up in quality. I think to your point there about Ajax, I think Ajax were actually at home, which made the result, so I might be wrong with that, but it made the result all the more humbling for them. But I think it's going to be an interesting few weeks. I know a few people have given the example comparing us to Club Brugge. How come Club Brugge can do it? I was having a little look at some of the players that they've got in their squad. They've got players they've spent 15 million on, 9 million for 4 or 5 players in the summer they spent 5 million on. We're not there yet. Do you know what I mean? we need a couple of years in Champions League to start to bring in that type of player. Obviously, we brought in the likes of Yilmaz and Davis for half decent money over the last few weeks, over the last few months. But it's going to take time to get used to that level. But let's give ourselves a starting chance by competing in these games. But no, roll on Wednesday, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, don't talk to me about Club Brugge and Skov Olsen, the rate he's tearing up the Belgian league at the moment. But yeah, JB raises a fantastic point there, Tommy, in terms of that is the club that, you know, we've been sort of compared to in terms of this, and it's the 3-year model. And, you know, once you've had a sort of your doings for the first 2 years, and the third year is somewhere where we should expect to see gains in the Champions League or performances in the Champions League. Where do you sit in this? Do you think what Jurgen Klopp said is a load of condescending tosh, or do you think us as supporters that we have to temper our expectations in the Champions League this season?
Jurgen Klopp and being patronising, shocker. I think the gloss is well worn off of Jurgen Klopp, but it's maybe a personal thing there. But yeah, listen, I think I said this on social media or whatever as well after the Anfield game, which is it's possible to both be disappointed about Rangers' performances in the UCL group stages and be realistic about where we are. You can hold both of those positions, right? Because we got to a European final, right? Europe's second tier competition last season. We got all the way to the final, right? It's a pretty good run, right? And there's some big teams whose bodies were stepped over on the way to that, right? We know we can play at a certain level. You take out a couple of players and the balance got lost a little bit with Bassi and Aribo, and you can have a challenge about, well, 2 players shouldn't make a team, and particularly when one's a young defender, right? And we're taking a bit of time to recover from that and get used to Gio's style. I think, yeah, the Napoli game JB references is maybe a fair point, although, I mean, Napoli absolutely ran riot over us in the midfield. I was actually, as much as I don't like seeing Rangers get toyed with, it was something to watch their movement in the middle. Napoli's. The sending off changed obviously to a large extent, but if you judge performances and expectations, etc., by the amount of money that can be thrown at things, because that's 99% of what makes it up, then yeah, we're going to get really tough nights, and we're just going to have to not accept it, right? But look to the wider picture, which is your point, right? Yes, you'll get the odd occasion where we step up and we get a victory or we get a point or whatever, right? But it is a process of saying Rangers need to live within their means. They won't overspend. That's not our model anymore. We're about recruiting early if we can and then selling on, and we'll pad that out with some senior players. You're going to do that the more you get into. I'd be much more worried, but I am much more focused on Rangers performing well and winning the championship this season, right? Because we didn't do that last season. And yes, getting to a European final was amazing. It was brilliant. Didn't win it, right? So there is a point to that. And we didn't get ourselves over the line for what was a guaranteed group stages of the UCL. Yes, we got there eventually, but it'd be a different conversation if we hadn't, right? So it's all about getting back in, getting guaranteed, building up that pot of money, which then makes the whole club uplifted and means that we move into the next phase. Because there's a hell of a lot of good stuff that's been on about Rangers, but it comes back to the same thing as always. A couple of decent performances, beating Liverpool on this week, right? Or having a really good run over the next 8 games in the Premiership. I'll take the 8 games, thanks very much, because that gets us towards the goal, and the goal is winning the title. This season we did pretty much what we needed to, which was get into the UCL, bank that money, and more importantly, we don't like to reference it, but bank the money that Celtic had been able to bank as well, because you didn't want them banking that and us not getting it, because that's another kind of downside. It's really that simple. Doesn't mean I enjoy watching us getting, a tough time in games. Mm-hmm. But there does have to be a certain level of realism when you look at squads and we're picking up 3 players. I mean, we're talking about Fashion Sakala starting against Liverpool. Really? You know what I mean? That type of scenario. And that's not having a go at Fashion, but perspective is sometimes required.
Yeah. I was going to ask you how you're expecting us to set up on on Wednesday night, because I know that was something that Craig and I were talking about leaving the ground yesterday, and I'm very much of the opinion I'd quite like to see us stepping out and having a wee bit of a go. Having just watched that the Liverpool Arsenal game there, I think there's space in behind. So, well, how would you set up then, Tommy? Interest?
Go for it. Go straight for the jugular. Yeah, why not? Listen, it's Ibrox, we're rocking. We might as well. I mean, you don't want to get thrashed or anything like that, right? But you can make changes in game to say, right, it's not performing or whatever. We'll pad it out with more defenders, or we can sit back, change the tactics, right? But ultimately, if Rangers have been guilty of anything, domestically and abroad this season, by and large, it's not bringing a level of belief into the performance, which is take 2 steps forward. You're Rangers, you can perform well, you can score goals, you can dominate teams. Have a go for it. And if we're not going to go for it against a team like Liverpool at Ibrox on a packed Champions League night, then when are we going to go for it? Gio, take the shackles off, do all the tactics you want in the background, but set us up to actually have a go at them. I think they're there to be got at, personally.
Yeah, that's it. And JB, what's your thoughts on Wednesday night, which is all teared up to be an absolutely cracking game? Are you wanting us to go out and attack Liverpool and dare I say attempt to go toe to toe with the Ibrox atmosphere behind us, or are you thinking it'll be a sort of similar setup with a 5 at the back as last Tuesday?
Yeah, I think I can see Sands probably coming back in there somewhere to try and give us a bit more leg and a bit more dig, and hopefully use the ball a bit better. But to Tommy's point, we've got to be aggressive all over the pitch, both defensively and offensively. So when we get the ball, we need to attack as a team. We can't just have one man just running rogue. Do you know what I mean? And just waiting to hopefully try and get a corner or something. I think I'd like to see us go back to the shape of last year that served us so well. Dortmund away, Leipzig at home. You know, like we need to get back to that. Everyone just absolutely running the bollocks off. And you might get a break on the night. You might win a penalty. The opposition might make mistakes. They're going to have some players potentially coming in there that maybe haven't played a lot of minutes this year. Obviously, we've seen Alexander-Arnold hobble off, so if Gomez is in there and Ryan Kent's on his game, he's got to be got at. Do you know what I mean? The left back isn't a regular. He's got to be got at. One thing we can't do is stand and admire them. And if we need to at times, then put the boot in. Do you know what I mean? You can use 5 subs. I know Van Gaal doesn't like to use all 5 that often, but we can use them. We've got a relatively modest squad there that we can use. You wouldn't probably want to start with some of the players that we might need to utilise, but let's get in about them and just show what we're all about, and the fans will react to that as well. So how many times have we been at Ibrox and a tackle gets celebrated like a goal? That could be what's needed on Wednesday. Yeah,
that's it exactly. Look, I've got one last sort of talking point to go over, Tommy. I'll come to you first on this, and then JB. I know I want to hear you talking about your night on Wednesday, so I'll let you end the podcast with that. But Tommy, this week it was announced that there was new deals for Robbie McCrory. I'd be really keen to get your thoughts on that one. I know there was a few eyebrows raised at that, and then today was a deal announced for Adam Devine, which is, something that we've not seen an awful lot of at Rangers in the last 10 years, so to speak, is young, promising youth players getting long contract extensions. Nathan Patterson being the obvious comparison. What's your thoughts on these two guys signing new deals at Rangers?
I'll take the Devine one first, which I think is a good deal. I think he's a good player. He's got real potential to be able to come in. And it is great to see that conveyor belt. And if you go back maybe 3-4 years, actually, it might have been Graham Martin and Craig Holland talked about that. It'll take time to wash through.
Yeah.
And by and large, we've invested really heavily in that area. We've created a really good name for ourselves in the youth setup across Europe and to some extent globally as well. And now players are getting the chance to get into the first team. So all credit to the club for that and the people behind the scenes. McCrory, I'm not going to change my position. I don't think he's good enough. And evidently the management team think differently. They've handed him a deal, I think, to 25.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly. Well, that's his chance to prove himself. He's get the best part of 2 and a bit years or whatever. I don't naturally see it, and I hope he proves me absolutely wrong, and I look stupid. But from what I've seen of him, nah, I think we'll still be shopping for two goalkeepers come the summer.
Yeah, and JB, just a quick opinion on the McCrory signing again.
Yeah, I'll be perfectly honest. I haven't seen enough of him to have a strong opinion. He looks the part, you know what I mean? And anytime he's come in, he's done okay. I definitely think I can't see a number one in him just yet. I think he's got a wee while to go, and on his loans that he's had, he's done it again. He's probably had a 6, 7 out of 10. Obviously the one at Livingston was probably his highest profile one, but I definitely think it'll be an area that we'll have to make sure that we're set up for success come the start of next season. I think McGregor's proved now he's going to be the number one for a wee while. He was coming for crosses and everything on Saturday, which was mad. But yeah, no, we'll unless McGregor gives us one more year, but we'll save that for another podcast.
Yeah, that's it. And JB, just if you just like to tell us about Tuesday night. I understand you had. I was going to say, I think you said 350, but I know Reese was there, so it was 349 and a half. Thanks. I worked on that one as well.
Yeah.
Tell us about Tuesday night and how it all went.
Yeah, it was. To be honest, mate, it couldn't have gone. Other results aside, the day probably couldn't have gone much better. And the amount of feedback I've had from locals, taxi drivers, people who know work in hotels and bars in Liverpool city centre, have all said the absolute same. And what an absolute pleasure it was to have the Rangers fans kicking about. I think the colour that we bring and the sing-song was absolutely fantastic. I mean, I can only talk about what I seen throughout the day, which was my social club, which is just on the Wirral. So we're about 15 minutes from Liverpool city centre. We had circa 350 Rangers fans in throughout the day. And you know what? Every one of them, to a man's behaviour, was impeccable. The bar staff all commented to say, you know what? Absolute. You'd have them every week. I think that was the comment that came back. Bear in mind, some of these lads have been on the ale since 6 o'clock in the morning, travelling from as far as Oban. And so big Willie Martin had travelled all the way down, and we had friends from coach loads of lads and ladies come down from Bishop Briggs, Rangers Supporters Club, the Glaswegian Supporters Club. So we're talking coach loads of you. All been up since 6 a.m. Some of them coming straight off night shifts and all sorts. Some stayed in for the game, and some went. Obviously, those with tickets went. And from start to finish, the fans were an absolute credit to their own supporters clubs, but also the Rangers family combined as well. And so I say, so generous. We done as you do. We did a fundraiser for our supporters club through a raffle and stuff. And again, it was 5s, 10s, 20s, all getting thrown in the pot because I think people genuinely do appreciate what Rangers, how difficult it is now for supporters clubs to keep going. And a little bit closer to home. I've been doing a bit of fundraising locally for a girl that used to manage you, unfortunately. Isn't doing too well at the moment, and one of the Glaswegian Supporters Club raised hundreds of pounds for me over the last couple of days just amongst their members. So never met the girl in question, but again, whenever we ask the Rangers fans to step up and rally round, they do. So no, massive thank you to the Glaswegian for that as well. But no, all in all, mate, I was proud of the club. That's probably what I could say. Albeit the performance on the pitch wasn't where we wanted it to be. But certainly the fans couldn't have asked for much more coming down to the club and representing the club the way that they did. And it was great to see Reese as well. So it was good to meet him in the flesh, which was nice.
Yeah, as you say that through bare teeth there.
No, he was good, and he got good feedback as well. I think he was down with his old man and stuff, and a lovely little fella was how he was described by one of the bar staff. So there you go. I'll give him that one.
Aye, he's some boy. But listen, it's a great 3 point series there. It's maybe something for our new director of comms to look at, as I think a lot of Rangers supporters would like to hear stories of supporters clubs doing well and events and all that stuff, something to take into. But listen, I think we'll end it there. It's nice to always finish it on a nice positive note as well. But look, I just want to say thanks to Tommy, thanks to JB for joining us tonight. Just remember, guys, you can catch us on all the usual socials. We've got the same shows that we do every week coming out. We've got our Monday bulletin on at 7 o'clock. We'll have a Friday Bulletin at 7. We'll have the Sunday one at 8 o'clock as well. And this week, I believe, I think I'm on it with Ross. Are you on it as well, Tommy? The immediate post-match reaction from the Liverpool game if we get there.
I am, depending on how swiftly I can move my own old bones out of my seat and get to my car after the game.
Yeah, we'll give it an ETA of around 11, and hopefully positive.
I'll need to stretch beforehand. None of the pies. Maybe at half time this time.
Get the heating cranked up to full for you coming in there. But thanks everyone for watching and check us out, and we'll see you all again soon.